This is a practice exercise video solution. For this practice, we'll be using the supplied dataset General Joints. We're going to be using this to create as-built and joints in Fusion 360. To get started, we're first going to create a rigid joint. To do this, we're going to select As-Built Joint, set the type to rigid, and select the two components. We'll say OK, and now both of these will move together as one. Let's revert the position and take a look at the next components. Next, we have a set of components called Revolute. To make these easier to see going forward, I'm going to go to Inspect and turn on Component Color Cycling. We're going to go to Assemble and select As-Built Joint, set the type to Revolute, select our two components, and the position of revolution. If we want to test this, we'll need to ground one of the components, and you'll notice that Cube 1 is grounded, allowing Cube 2 to rotate. Let's revert the position. Let's hide the revolute and take a look at the next set of components. Next, we'll go to Assemble, As-Built Joint, and set the type to Slider. We'll select our two components, and then we'll select an edge and a position reference. Now the pink block can slide back and forth. Let's go ahead and revert its position, hide the slider, and show the next one called Cylindrical. The cylindrical components are not in place, so instead of using as-built, we'll need to use joint. We're going to start by selecting the components. I'm going to hover the cursor over the inside diameter, hold down my Control or Command key, then I can select the position I want, in this case, the bottom center. Next, I'll do the same thing by hovering over the outside cylinder of the blue block, and then hold down Control or Command and move to the bottom position. This allows me to move the two components in place, and then I can determine what type of joint I want to use. Right now, the default is set to rigid, but we want to go to the fourth option, which is cylindrical. This will allow it to not only rotate, but also move up and down on the shaft. Let's go ahead and revert its position, hide the cylindrical, and show ball. Once again, we'll need to use the joint type. This time I'm going to go to Motion, and I'm going to preset it to the ball type. For my position, it's going to be the center of that spherical component and the center of the socket. This allows me to create a ball type that allows it to move around in all different directions, but stay fixed based on the center of rotation. Let's revert, hide ball, and let's show planar. You might need to zoom out a little bit to see this one completely. Once again, we're going to go to Joint. This time we're going to be taking a look at a planar joint. My first component is going to be the bottom of this block. Note that the position is not going to be as critical in this case, so I'm going to make sure that the orientation of my X, Y, and Z is correct. I don't want to accidentally select the position on the back edge, but making sure that my Z is pointing down on the block, then rotate it around, and I'm going to select the center point of my plane. Now the block can move around on plane as well as rotate. You can test this by manually moving it around, but it's not going to rotate automatically unless it hits something else with contact sets. Lastly, we want to take a look at pin and slot. Once again, we'll go to Assemble and Joint, and this time we're going to be taking a look at the pin and slot type joint. To get started, I'm going to hover over the cylindrical boss on the block, and once again, I'm going to hold down Control or Command, and I want to select the appropriate position. In this case, I'm going to select the bottom portion of the cylinder. Next, I want to select the position on the slot. Once again, to do this, as soon as I hover over the face, I'm going to hold down Control or Command and make sure that I pick the center position of that slot. From here, I'm going to say OK, and note that it doesn't move in line with the slot. Because of this, I'm going to revert its position. I want to go to the joint, and I want to modify it. We're going to edit the joint and notice that the joint alignment right now is based on the position or a simple mode. We can also modify its position or its joint alignment by making some adjustments. In order to do this, we want to go to the Motion tab, and instead of using the Z-axis for our slide, we want to make sure that we use a custom axis. We want to select the edge of our slot. So it's going to rotate about X, but now it's going to move inside of the slot based on its position. Once again, we'll revert. We're going to go back to a home view. And note that we've taken a look at all the different types of joints and as-built joints. But you can still explore these further by taking a look at things like joint limits, driving the joints, or animating them by using some of the right-click options. From here, make sure that you do save before you move on.